Orbie discovered that if you're building a house with toothpicks, it helps a lot if you don't sneeze. Katie discovered that if you pick your painting up before it dries, the paint does some decorating on its own. And they both found out that eating lunch under the table is fun, unless you want to jump up. Katie ate her cheese and lettuce sandwich as quickly as she could. Mom asked her to be sure to chew every bite. Orbie snuffled up his grape and tuna sandwich and was finished first. They were in a hurry because today Mom was taking them to a play. Orbie knew it was exciting and Katie knew it was going to be fun, but neither of them really knew what a play was. Orbie made what's a play noises. Mom chuckled to herself as she cut up strawberries and put them over ice cream for dessert. She told them that a play was a story acted out with real people. The people in the play were called actors, and they helped to tell the story by saying the words that go in it. Plays were put on in theaters on a raised floor called a stage. There were a lot of seats in front of the stage for visitors to sit on. Sometimes you couldn't see what was on the stage before the play started because a great, huge curtain covered the stage to keep it a surprise. When the curtain opened, the play began. Inside the community center, there was a big picture with a sign of a fire-breathing dragon on it. A woman took tickets as people went through the door. Katie wanted to know what the sign said. "That's the sign for the play we're going to see," said Mom. "It's called The Secret of Deadly Dick the Dreadful Dragon." Mom gave the lady 3 tickets, and they all went inside. Katie and Orbie sat on either side of Mom and looked around the large room. There were all kinds of visitors in the other seats. Mom told them that they had to sit still and be very quiet while the play was going on. Soon there was music, and the lights faded. Then the music got louder, and the lights went out. Katie held one of Mom's hands, and Orbie held the other. They couldn't wait to see the story happen. Suddenly, the curtain whisked open, and people dressed in clothes just like in storybooks started to talk. There were actors in bright-colored clothes, tables and chairs, and a cottage with straw on the roof. They both wondered how they got trees and a whole mountain up there, too. They were all set to absolutely love the play. Katie thought it was rather like a moving storybook. It was right about this time that the prince told the townspeople he couldn't kill Deadly Dick. Deadly Dick was the vicious dragon that threatened to burn the town with his fire breath. The prince told the townspeople that he would give a farm and a cow to whoever could kill the deadly dragon. Katie and Orbie felt sorry for the dragon and were beginning to not like the prince much when all of a sudden a horrible screaming, growling noise, clouds of smoke, and a flash of real fire erupted from the mountain. Both Katie and Orbie yelped, and Mom put her arms around them and cuddled them close. "It's not a real dragon," Mom whispered to each of them. "Deadly Dick," screamed the actors. "He's awake and he's angry. He'll breathe fire on us all." Katie and Orbie huddled next to Mom. There was a heavy, hollow boom, boom, boom. "He's coming," shouted the prince. And let me tell you, he was. Suddenly, a great, scaly foot stepped out from behind the curtain. Katie and Orbie squeezed Mom's arms. Then there he was, a huge, green, scary, fire-breathing dragon. Orbie started to snarl and Katie started to whimper. Luckily for them, the curtain began to close slowly. Mom said it was intermission, and they could get up and walk around a bit. Katie and Orbie were glad to get up and would have been quite glad to go home right then and there, to tell you the truth. Outside in the bright hallway, Mom knelt down in front of them and said, "You know that wasn't a real dragon. There was nothing to be afraid of." But Katie and Orbie had seen the dragon with their own eyes, and it was real enough for them. They were both still trembling. Mom took Katie and Orbie's hands and went over to the ticket lady. She spoke to her, and the lady nodded and smiled at Katie and Orbie. Then she opened a door behind her, and Mom and Katie and Orbie were invited inside. Mom told them this was backstage. Katie and Orbie hardly noticed the huge black drapes and all the furniture pieces and people in black clothes walking around with headphones. All they noticed was that this is starting to look a lot like Dragon Country, and they weren't glad to be in it. The lady led them to the back where she talked to the prince. He looked at Katy and Orbie and nodded his head. Then he went behind a big curtain. Things were quiet for a minute, and then the curtain ruffled and flapped, and out came the dragon. Katy gasped, and Orbie's knees were actually knocking. The prince came out behind him and calmly said, "Katy and Orbie, I'd like you to meet my friend George." And Deadly Dick reached up with his forelegs. Katy and Orbie shrank behind Mom. Then they peeked out as the dragon pulled his own head off. Katy and Orbie were simply too frightened to speak. But then they noticed that inside the dragon body was a kindly-looking white-haired man. "Hi, Katy. Hi, Orbie. I'm George, and I play Deadly Dick, the dreadful dragon." Katy tried to remember her manners, but then she'd never met a dragon with a man's head. "I just pretend to be a dragon," chuckled George. "I'm sorry you were frightened." It took a minute, but soon Katy and Orbie smiled and then laughed. Then the prince, whose real name was Lenny, told them that anything they saw on stage like that was just make-believe. "3 minutes to curtain," somebody said. Katy and Orbie said goodbye to George and Lenny. "And I think they'll be fine now," Mom said. "Thank you." The second half of the play was fun. Katy and Orbie watched as a young girl crept up on Deadly Dick and discovered that he had a sore throat. That's why he breathed fire. His throat was burning. The girl gave him some hot honey and lemon. That put the fire out in his throat. He felt much better. Deadly Dick, the dreadful dragon, wasn't a meanie after all. He was a friendly dragon. And the girl got the farm and the cow, and she and her mother and brother and sisters lived there with their pet dragon happily ever after. In the car on the way home, Katy and Orbie decided that they liked going to the play and would like to go again. It was fun for the story to be scared, but you didn't have to be really scared because it was all make-believe. At dinner, they told Dad all about their adventure. Katy and Orbie both thought it would be fun to dress up in funny costumes and put on a play themselves. And I can tell you now that they did. But that's another story.
Did you know? No. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? You can save pretty flowers so they'll last a long time. Put the flowers between some wax paper and then press it between the pages of a big book. But you should pick them first.